Well, today, I'm going to give you 5 things. 5 things that I guarantee nobody in this room knows. Now, these are 5 things about our Commonwealth. The problem is the rest of the world knows this, but we ourselves don't. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's start with the hand. There's 5 of them. 5. But you know, this is just a hand, right? It's a hand that's signifying the 5 things I'm going to tell you. Well, if I tell you nothing about that hand, it's just a hand. Kind of like our state. We're just a state until you know the rest of the story. So, number 1. What am I going to tell you? Last year, Kentucky exports generated $1 billion of state and local taxes. That's $1 billion. Representative, you know what I'm talking about. It's dollars that are going into the general fund, that are paying for our schools, that are paying for opportunities for our government, that are helping to make things happen. It's kind of because of export. Where are our export destinations for Kentucky products? It's all over. It goes to Canada. It goes to Mexico. It's probably easier to tell you where they're not going than where they are going. Now, here's one thing that I want to point out to you. If you look, the light blue colored countries, those are where we're not sending exports. And I'll be honest with you, there's 2 that I personally want to get some exports going to. They're Greenland and Iceland. If there's ever a place that needed Kentucky bourbon, it's Greenland and Iceland. So I personally am going to go there sometime soon. I don't know when, but I'm going to go there and take a couple of good bottles of Kentucky bourbon and see if we can't mix some of that ice that they've got there with it. So, number 2. Did you know we were number 2 in the nation last year for export growth? When's the last time you saw Kentucky be number 2 in the nation in anything? Besides basketball, right? But, you know, it's one of those things that we don't do a good job of advertising who we are and what we are. So when you start looking at that, Kentucky had 14.3% growth last year. The U.S. growth was 2.1%. We're doing something right here. That's something we should be proud of. Let's look at our competitor states, because you know what? We're going to look at them come football and basketball season, right? Tennessee, hey, pat them on the back. They did a great job at 4% growth. Or Ohio, 3.9%, because you know Ohio's so much better than us. That's what we always hear. Well, you know what? Indiana, yeah, they didn't do so well. They're negative. And Virginia, negative. Illinois, negative. Get the pattern. Poor West Virginia. We need to think about poor West Virginia. They lost 25% of their exports. Anybody want to guess what product went down? Yeah, boy, y'all are good. I don't need to do too much more on this. You've got some of that good stuff in your brain already. Our competitor states are negative. So $25 billion, yes, that's B, billion dollars of exports from Kentucky. Guys, we're doing something right, and a lot of it's happening right here in this region. Last year, this region exported over $100 million. Do you know any exporters? Think about it. Who are they? They're old plastics. Yeah, we do plastics. What else do we export? What is Kentucky famous for?
Bourbon.
Bourbon, yeah. Well, we have bourbon that comes out of this region. Grain? That's a good one.
Chicken.
You know what's funny? I go around the state and I always ask, what's our 3 biggest exports? I do this in groups from colleges to elementary schools to chambers of commerce all around the state. And usually here's the 3 that I get. You tell me if these are right. First one's coal, because you know we're a coal state. Everybody's told us we're a coal state. Number 2, what is it?
Tobacco.
It's tobacco, because we're always told we're a tobacco state. Number 3 is fried chicken. That's what I typically hear from people. Now, I'm going to be honest, that's typically the college kids, so don't be thinking that's elementary school guys. But that's what people in this state think we export. Well, come a few more slides, you'll find out what we truly export. So we're already up to number 3. So what is it? What size companies export? Well, we know about Toyota. Toyota's big. They export everywhere. We don't really need to teach them how to export, do they? Well, they already do a pretty good job. There's a big solution there in Lexington, Kentucky, that's going around the world. 120 countries they've shipped fans to. Kinetic Technology. Raise your hand if you know who Kinetic Technology is. Yeah, that's right. They're a small business. They're a small business that up until 3 years ago had only 18 employees. Well, now, after those 3 years and the assistance that we've been able to provide them, they've had 1,800% growth in exports. Yeah, that was 1,800% growth. They now have 230 employees. That's what this is all about. It's about the jobs. When I got hired in economic development, my boss told me, Brad, you just need to make things happen. I said, carte blanche? I can do whatever I want? He says, yes, because it all comes down to jobs. If you can make the jobs, the economy, all that stuff will take care of itself. Well, as we know, of our exporting businesses, 80% of these are small and medium sized, and they account for 26% of all of our exports. The big guys I don't need to explain exporting to. It's the small guys. It's the small businesses. Now, Graves County, that's not in this average, but I want to kind of give you a story. I take this around the state, and I always say, how many people actually know where Graves County is? A lot of people don't. Graves County had great industries many years ago. But you know what? They left. They left. But you know what? Those companies, Ingersoll Rand, left Graves County, but what did they leave behind? They left behind the people. They took the plant, they moved it away, they took those jobs, but they didn't take the most valuable resource, the people. The brain power left in Graves County have come up with some fantastic solutions. Now, I've got 4 companies here I'm going to tell you about. The first one is the oldest exporter in the state. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, I don't really know that for sure, but you know I'm from the government, or I was, and I can tell you this, and you think Alex is right. They started exporting in 1860. They export tobacco from Western Kentucky. Now, here's a fun question for you. Anybody know the percentage of their exports of their business? It's 100%. They don't sell a single product in the United States. 100% of it's exported. Now, here's just something else that's fun. It only goes to one country. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I will bet anybody in this room lunch today if you can tell me what country they send all that to.
China.
Oh, sorry. I didn't say that if you guessed wrong, you'd buy my lunch. But here's the thing. 100% of the product goes to Nigeria. Nigeria. And it's been going there since when? Yeah, the 1800s. Now, here's how deeply ingrained Campbell tobacco is in the Nigerian culture. If you're a gentleman like myself and you want to marry the prettiest girl in the village, guess what you got to do? You've got to provide 6 heads of Campbell tobacco to your future father-in-law. If you don't do that, guess what? Yeah, you get married. They take those heads of tobacco, and what do? They nail them to the wall to show how well off their future son-in-law is. And it all comes back to Mayfield, Kentucky. The next guys that I have on there, it's the second from the top and the bottom side. Those guys, they deal in air compressors. Ingersoll Rand made lots of air compressors. Well, guess what? Ingersoll Rand doesn't care who fixes their air compressors. So where do you think those air compressors that are around the world that run factories get repaired from? It's from Graves County. Because remember, when Ingersoll Rand left, they left the most valuable resource. The guys that could fix it. The guys that knew how these things work from the inside out. They're in Mayfield, and guess what? They're exporting. Because worldwide, Ingersoll Rand air compressors are everywhere. And as we all know, machinery breaks down. You've got to have somebody that can repair it. And guess where the capital of air compressor repairs are? Mayfield, Kentucky. The third one from the top is probably the most interesting business that I know of. This is every woman's dream. In D&D Shoe Company's possession, right at this second, they have over 15 million shoes. Now, there's a problem with these shoes. There's always a catch in there. There's a problem with these shoes because they only have one of each. There's not pairs of shoes, there's only one. But let me tell you about Kentucky ingenuity. The guys that run D&D Shoes said, you know what? We find out that Walmart has all these shoes, but they've got a size 7 women's shoe here in Kentucky. They have a size 7 shoe in California. Walmart's not going to spend the time to match those up. D&D Shoes does that. So what do they do after they match up those shoes? Yeah, they ship them outside of our country. And they make pretty good money. Now, Walmart wants to get rid of those that you can't even call it a pair of shoes, that one shoe scenario. D&D Shoes pays 40 cents a shoe. Doesn't matter how much the shoes cost, 40 cents a shoe. Yeah, they sell them outside of our country for $40. Okay, who's the math whiz that wants to tell me that markup? That's pretty good money right there. And that's Kentucky ingenuity, and that's the kind of businesses that we from the state need to help get into those international markets. Remember, I told you I was going to give you 5. Number 4, Kentucky's had record exports for 4 consecutive years. How many people in here have their 401k that's gone up 4 consecutive years? Yeah, there's nobody. That's unheard of growth. And it's not the kind of growth you're expecting. It's 10% growth on top of 10% growth, on top of 10% growth, on top of 14% growth. And guess what? This year, yeah, it's 10% growth. So what's the secret? What comes about people like myself going around the state talking about exports? How many of you in this room thought about exports before that guy came up here and started talking about it? This is something we need to start sharing with our business community. There's resources out there to help them take that step into exporting. When we start looking at the growth rates, we start looking back at this thing called KEI, Kentucky Export Initiative. Governor Beshear put together resources that said, you know what, we got lots of people talking exports, but they're all saying something different. So he enlisted the help of Kentucky World Trade Center, U.S. Commercial Services, the Chamber of Commerce, Kentucky Association of Manufacturers, state government, and lots of other partners to start talking together. I've had the privilege of traveling most of this state with Governor Martha Lane Collins and talking about exports. And let me tell you, you want to talk about a humbling experience is when you're driving down the road on the Bluegrass Parkway and you realize, oh my gosh, I've got the person who the road's named after sitting in the seat beside you. That, my friend, is a humbling experience. But let me tell you about Kentucky Export Initiative. Before it started, our growth rate was just like everybody else's. It was 1.18% for the 3 years prior. The U.S. average was negative 6.9. Since the KEI started, we're up 25.9%. I don't want to brag or anything, but pretty obvious what the numbers are saying. U.S. growth is up 6.7. Let's look at our neighbors. They're kind of that same numbers. One of them's getting it. Mississippi's getting that number. Do you know what Mississippi's big export is now? Yeah, it's cars. It's Toyotas. It's Hondas. They're figuring it out too. So as of June of this year, this data that I'm sharing with you is the latest, the greatest. It's only been out about 2 weeks. The Kentucky export growth through June of this year is up 9.62%. The U.S. economy is up 2.98%, and our competitor states are about 3.6%. So once again, we're beating. So number 5, there's the kicker. We only have 5% of our businesses exporting. Now let me ask you a question. Talking about resources and talking about tax dollars coming in. Remember I told you $1 billion of taxes come in from exporting. But only 5% of our businesses are exporting. Once again, I'm not the math whiz here, but let's just say we get up to, I don't know, 10%. How much money is that going to be? We don't know. But if we could get up to 10%, I can tell you, balancing the budget gets a lot easier. It doesn't matter which side of the aisle you're on, what you think about tax rates and where they should be, it doesn't matter. Because at the end of the day, somebody else is paying our taxes for us. That's a good scenario.